name's Tony.
And I'm Eddie.
We're the Skid Guys with a very special Christmas message for you.
For centuries, Christmas was celebrated not as a single day, but as a whole season beginning on...
Oh. Well, now.
Hi, my name's Tony.
And I'm Eddie.
We're the Skid Guys with a very special Christmas message for you.
For centuries, Christmas was celebrated not as a single day, but as a whole season beginning on December 24th, Christmas Eve. I mean, it was a day celebrated with feasting and dancing and storytelling, and of course, candles lit to reflect the coming of the birth of Christ.
However, lighting that Christmas Eve candle can be a real booger.
Oh, we don't say boogers in church.
You just did.
I'm not repeating you. I was just saying, everybody knows how to light a Christmas Eve candle.
Well, not if they're like me. But that's not a problem anymore. Because with another candle and Santa's little helper, no problem.
Therefore, because of science,
The candle will light.
no.
Okay, this one's ground. No, this one's ground. No, it doesn't matter. Let's do it. Look, we need a flame, and it's called a flame thrower.
No. Have you ever lit a match before?
No, I'm sorry. I live in a house. We have this thing called electricity. We no longer chase ogres with torches. I feel really bad. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean, it is the season of forgiveness. I mean, it is Christmas!
Using the lit candle, slowly unite the wicks until the flame transfers. Thank you, Jacob Marley. And that is how you light a Christmas candle. Merry Christmas from our house to yours.
You need to stop, drop, and roll.
You need to quit telling me what to do.
You need to stop, drop, and roll.
You need to quit being a Christmas killjoy is what you do. What? No!
We're gonna light the peace candle. Kim and Andrew.
We began Advent last Sunday by lighting the first candle, the candle of hope. We light it again today to remind us that Christ is coming to fulfill God's promises.
Today we light the second candle, the candle of peace. The prophet Isaiah said, "Comfort, comfort my people, the nation anxious about invasion and exile." As he foretold the coming of the Prince of Peace, our world is still filled with violence and abuse, where families are torn apart by war, and children are used as soldiers. Isaiah's words continue to speak to us that Jesus will bring us to an everlasting peace.
Mary and Joseph found no room in the inn to give birth to Jesus, but we can heed John the Baptist's command to make room in our hearts. Wherever there is war or mistrust between peoples, families, or our own hearts, God is present and leading us to imagine new ways of living in peace.
Christ is our only hope, and our peace is found through him. We light this candle to remind us of Jesus, life-giving peace to all who trust in him. We light it in honor of those who live the gospel truth that war does not make one great. The peace workers who risk much so that others may live free of fear.
Let us pray. We're in trouble, holy God. So many in the world do not know peace in their countries or in their hearts. We use weapons of steel and barbed woods to wound one another. We seek balm for our restless hearts and things that only make us more wounded. Open our hearts to Jesus so we may have peace of his holy presence and live it in our unpeaceful world. Save us from outside violence and inner turmoil. We need you. Come, peaceful God, come. Amen.
Thank you. So peace is defined as freedom from disturbance, quiet, and tranquility. I grew up in a generation that experienced the conflict of the Vietnam War, if you remember that. They didn't really call it a war at the time. It was considered a conflict. and it was a police action originally, but there were a lot of people that died there, and it sure seemed like a war, especially when you watch the news and they'd give death tolls every night. I remember watching the death tolls. It was like they were keeping score. They'd give the Viet Cong's scores, and then give U.S. soldiers score. It's terrible. It was a very terrible time. The movement against the war, I don't know if any of you remember that movement. I'm old enough to remember that. There was this movement against the war, and it spun this whole countercultural thing, this peace movement. And during this time, people were anti-war, they were anti-establishment, they were anti just about anything that they could get a cause against. You know, remember the hippies? I was kind of on the cusp of that, the lower end of that. I was a freshman in high school in '73, and I was in class of '77, so I knew what it was about. I think it's interesting that when things like that take place, like peace, this counterculture of peace, how in a capitalist society, they start picking up these things. And remember the peace symbol? This peace symbol was so cool. I had we didn't have trapper keepers at the time. We didn't go around with backpacks. I had a peachy, and everything was in my peachy. I had all my papers and everything. And I would sit and I'd doodle on that peachy and all the different sports activities that was on this peachy, the football player and basketball player. I would make them do stuff, and guys would write stupid things on there and stick spears through their heads. And it was just a part of the culture of the peachy. And I remember drawing peace symbols all over the peachy and trying to be cool. And there was this mod art that was happening at the time. And I had these peace patches. And I had these cool jeans, and you may not think these are cool, but I thought they were cool. I had these elephant bottom jeans that were about like that, and you would cut the bottom off of them so that they would fray as you drug them on the ground. And then I would take them home and I would pour bleach on them. Now I bought these pants just so I could rough them up. So I'd go and buy a pair of bell-bottom jeans, maybe Levi's, and the bigger the bell, the cooler you were. They call those elephant bells, for some of you that don't know. And I would cut the hem off, because they'd hem up the bottom. And then I would turn around and pour bleach on them so that when you washed them, they would burn these big holes in the pants. And then I would turn around and I would get patches. And I had peace symbol, peace signs, and I had keep on trucking them on my pocket. And I just was like Mr. Joe Hippie. Had long hair. I played sports, but I was like the chameleon. I could be anywhere, and I just wanted to be so cool. And I wore those Nehru shirts, and I had some of those puffy sleeve shirts with the bell bottoms, and I was doing it. I was fitting. It was really cool, at least for me at the time. And I must have had every pair of jeans I had. I think were bell bottoms, and then I had a couple smaller bottom pants, but they were all flared, okay? And you could go down, and I think I bought my Levi's jeans for like $8 a pair, and that was like, wow, a lot of money. But now, you go buy a pair of Levi's and see what they cost you. I must have had probably 8 pairs of bell-bottom pants, and the more stressed out they were, the cooler they were. And my parents were livid over those pants. My dad said, "You're not wearing that junk to school." I'm not going to say his real words, but he said something like that. But it was a little bit more colorful. And he said, "You're not wearing those to school." And so my stepmother was the enforcer. So she would check me down, up and down on the way to school. And what I would do is I would carry a bag and say I'm carrying my gym trunks or whatever, and I'd put another pair of Levi's. And then I'd walk to school and I'd go down to the local gas station, change out my pants, and then I could be cool all day. Because they wanted me to wear corduroy straight legs or corduroy, bell bottoms, which were cool in the late 70s, but they weren't as cool. Workers' jeans, straight leg jeans weren't that cool. I could even wear bell bottoms as long as they weren't stressed out, but they weren't cool until they were stressed out, right? That was the coolest part of it. I remember the peace movement, and it created so much. And it was really led by the college students. College students were the ones that were on the front leading edge of that. And then it kind of trickled down to everybody else. And it was a very difficult time because I remember as a freshman and sophomore in school, they were still drafting for the Vietnam War. And so I can remember guys going, hey man, you know, I won't be able to do this or I won't be able to do that because I'm not going to college. You know, I got drafted. And so I can remember them sending guys off to the Vietnam War. And I can remember them making an announcement on the PA. You don't even hear this on your announcements anymore, where you had to register for the selective service for the Vietnam War, or you're going to go to jail. And they would let you know that if you turned 18 and you were a senior, you better register for the selective service, or you're going to go to jail. It's pretty rough. And I knew there were a lot of guys that went to Vietnam and they never came back. But it was really interesting. This whole time, peace meant something different, didn't it? Peace went from wanting peace in the Vietnam War to peace being cool. I used to throw up, this used to be the thing. You know, like, it wasn't like this, it wasn't down like this, and it wasn't that stuff. It was straight peace, brother. Peace, peace, okay? Like that. And I can remember doing that, and we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have this ability to turn around and text somebody, WD, what are you doing? WUD or whatever, WYD, what you doing? You know, we just go, hey, brother, sister. And they go, hey, that means, hey, man, what's up? What's up? What's happening? Right? And it was really part of what we were doing. It was easy to throw up a peace sign. That meant hi. That meant what you doing. That was the texting of the era. And going back to the caveman days. Peace was cool. Peace meant love. There was a whole generation of saying, love peace. You know, don't embrace hate. It was a way of protesting the war and saying that what was going on there was wrong. There was also, during this time, there was this revival movement. And I don't know if any of you remember the 60s and 70s hippie Jesus movement, but it happened. And when you talk to young people these days about Jesus, a lot of them don't want anything to do with Jesus. But what they fail to realize is a lot of their parents and grandparents, I'm a parent, and I should be grandpa by now. I'm 59, so I should be grampy. But I'm not. But the people from my generation, they thought differently about Jesus. There was a whole generation of people that participated in this movement. There were lots of rock stars that decided to follow Jesus for a while. Bob Dylan was one of them, if you know who Bob Dylan is. Barry McGuire, you Christy Minstrels, and you're going, oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, we'll try this on. There's a song called Spirit in the Sky. When I die, gonna go to the Spirit in the sky. You know that song? Okay? Norman Greenbaum. That was a Jesus song that came out of the 70s Jesus movement. Isn't that interesting? And then there was another song by the Doobie Brothers, Jesus is just all right with me. You know that song? That came out of that same movement. Wasn't that cool? And now we have this time where people don't even want to talk about Jesus. And you talk to young kids about Jesus, and they're more concerned with bashing Trump than they are about hearing the good news. And sad. It's really sad. The Jesus movement, it began in the late 60s, and it ran through the 1970s, and then it lost momentum in the 1980s. And the reason it lost momentum is because people stopped seeing a need for peace. People stopped seeing a need for Jesus doing this thing like I'm gang it. Yeah, bro, throw down, Joe, yo. Silly. The book Isaiah has many prophecies about Jesus. And I would like to read John. If you love me and keep my commands and ask the Father, and he'll give you... No, that's not where I want to be. I want to be Isaiah. Okay, let's go to Isaiah. I don't know how I threw John in there. But Isaiah 9, 2 through 7. Let me see if I can find it real fast. I thought I put it in here. But I didn't, evidently. I was too busy throwing down. Peas. 9 2 through 7. I'm on Isaiah.
I think they say deuces now.
Deuces.
Deuces.
Deuces. Okay.
Have you heard it? Deuces, I'm out.
Peace, yo. Peace, yo. Okay, so deuces now. Okay, I'm way out, man. I'm way out. I'm still doing bell bottoms. Okay.
You know you're not.
You got dressed.
The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadows of death, a light was dawned. You've enlarged the nation, increased their joy. They rejoice before you as the people rejoice at the harvest, as men rejoice when dividing the plunder. For as in the day of Midian's defeat, you have scattered the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor. Every warrior's boot used in battle and every garment rolled up in blood will be destined for burning, will be fuel for the fire. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. And the interesting part is that when he came into the world, everybody expected him to bring a governmental release from the oppression of the Romans, and he didn't. He came to bring peace for those who were caught in their sin. If you've read the Bible much at all, you see that Jesus' ministry was to those that were burdened in this world by those things that had held them captive. Whether it was their sin, it was their ailment, it was whatever the problem was. He went around and he healed blind people, he healed lepers. He dealt with a lot of the problems that people had at the time because he was there not to lead a revolt against the Roman Empire, but to bring great peace in the world. So I want to kind of parse out Isaiah 9, 2 through 7. Light. When you are in darkness, light is so important. Have you ever been someplace where there's no light? They have bunkers on the coast, and you go down to those bunkers in the coast, and if you get into some of them, you can get back far enough and you can see there's absolutely no light because they're built underneath the dirt. And I've experienced that before where I've been some places like in a cave where there's no light. And if you have no way to guide your path, you start having hallucinations in the darkness. You start seeing things that aren't there. You start worrying about where your feet are and how to get out. And I think about that as the prophecy of Jesus Christ. When you look at such a dark world that we live in, when there's so many temptations and there's so many things that can draw you away from life in ways that destroy your life and give you no hope, that Jesus would come and bring light, bring hope in the midst of that darkness. Then he says, I will multiply, increase your harvest. And you think about it, everything is cool and peaceful when you got everything you need, right? If you've got all the money you need, everything that you have to pay for is paid for, and everything is taken care of, that is a really peaceful place. And then he says, breaking the yoke of their burden. Breaking the yoke of their burden. Freedom is cool. We don't really realize how cool freedom is. If you lost your freedom tomorrow, you'd realize how cool freedom is. But it's not free. And when we think about our sins, they're not free. You know, this idea of Jesus frees us from our sins, that's a beautiful concept. But the problem is it's not really free. Because it costs somebody something. It costs Jesus his life. So we can go and we can receive the gift and we can accept the gift, but it's not really free. It's not really free. And then it says, a child will be given. And I think babies are a gift. They're a blessing. But you can imagine if they said, here's your baby. You went to the hospital and they said, here's your baby, and then here's $10,000. Wouldn't that be cool? Every baby you got a gift on top of that. Or here's a brand new car. Here's your baby. Here's a brand new car. Wouldn't that be cool, huh? But babies are a gift. And the wonderful part about it is that Jesus brought with him a gift that no one else could ever give you. Bigger than a car, bigger than $10,000. It's this gift of life and life eternal. Then it says he'll be a wonderful counselor, mighty God, eternal Father, Prince of Peace. And how do you do that? It's because God sent him to walk with us. See, up to this point, when Moses met God on Mount Sinai, and he was in the presence of the Shekinah glory of God, he couldn't really look at God's face. He could just be in God's presence. And when he came back, he had to wear a veil on his face so that people couldn't see it because it was so overwhelming. And so in the presence of God, the Shekinah glory of God, his countenance changed. Now, when you watch the movies, they make him gray-haired guy, and I'll tell you what, if I don't dye my hair, it turns completely white with a big dark patch back here. And then I got this white hair here. And I'd like to believe that's because I'm in the Shekinah glory of God all the time. I'm in the presence of God all the time. But I don't know if that's really possible. I'm not on Mount Sinai. I do try to stay in relationship with God all the time. But I think the gray hair that I have is just natural. But the wonderful thing about Jesus being here is that God said, okay, here's the relationship that I have with Moses. And it's this one where he can't look at me. So can you imagine not being able, I'm going to have a relationship with you, Stephanie, but I'm not going to look at you. Hi, Stephanie, how you doing? I can't look at you, but you and I we're going to be cool, right? And you really can't have a relationship with somebody unless you can see them. And you can communicate in that way. And so God said, hey, you know what? There's something missing here. I want to be so close to humankind that they know who I am. And so I'm going to come down in the form of a man. We're going to go down as a baby. I'm going to be in the body of who Jesus is so that I can communicate with you and I can love you and I can reach out to you and you can touch me and I can communicate with you and tell you how much I love you and I can heal you and I can lay hands on you. And that's beautiful. And it's a beautiful way to think about how God is a wonderful counselor, a mighty God. Because God said, okay, you know what? I can't counsel with them if I'm removed from them in any way. But if I come to them and I can look at them and they can look at me, then I can have a deep relationship with them and I can bring them peace. Then it says that he will be from the throne of David. And I want to tell you what, the throne of David is so important. People don't understand this, and I'll tell you why it's important. Because there are two great kings in Israel. Does anybody know who they are? One's David. I already gave you that one. If you guessed that one, then you'd be already cheating. But one's David. Who's the other one? Solomon. And it was at the height of the kingdom of Israel. They hold the whole area of Israel. And then the Babylonians came in, and the Romans came in, and all these people came and subjugated them and destroyed their kingdom. And what happened? Does anybody know what happened as a result of that? It's called the diaspora. Does anybody know what the diaspora is? No? Well, it comes from the root of disperse. What does disperse mean? To be sent out. Yeah. And so at that point, they started going away from the homeland. And they started going out throughout the regions of the world. And so, when it says that he'll be from the throne of David, it means that he will unite Israel and he'll unite the world. The beautiful part about that is that the Gentiles are included in that, right? So that we would be one world, one God, under one God. That throne of David, the great kingdom of Israel, would have no bounds. There would be no boundaries. That we'd all be able to come in. And then he will uphold justice, righteousness forevermore. Beautiful. If you want to know more about that, read Revelation. And then it says, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. Anybody know what zeal means? When you're zealous for something, do you know what that means? You'd be willing. Huh? What?
You want it.
You want it so bad. You're fanatical about it. You'll get it by any means you want it. When they call people zealots, that means that they'll do crazy stuff, right? People that are fundamentally have a belief system and they're zealots, and they'll kill, they'll do whatever they need to do. And so God is, the zeal of the Lord of hosts will accomplish this. God desires this so much. He sent his son down because he says, I don't want him to have this kind of communication with you anymore. I want it to be open. I want to have a relationship with you. And I want you to have that peace knowing that I love you so much that I set you up to have salvation. I'm no longer going to let you fail because I love you so much. God wanted human beings to be at peace with God, no longer at conflict or war with God. I think of peace God, peace God, peace God. The battle over darkness, a battle of darkness over the destiny of souls was over because God would send the Prince of Peace. Today we lit the candle of peace to remember that the peace for the world and to remember the Prince of Peace. I want to ask you this morning, do you have peace in your hearts? Do you know what true peace really is? Do you know that a peace that rules over everything that wants to rage against your soul? That's pretty deep. Because we all worry. We all got our own problems. We're all broken in some way. Do you know a peace that transcends everything you have troubles with? Jesus came in this world to give you peace over everything that binds you. Peace over your health, finances, relationships, and the future. And this is the question I want to ask you. You don't have to answer it to me, but I want you to think about this. What have you not trusted Jesus with this morning? And what can you give to the Lord that would give you peace? Any circumstance might seem too much when you're trying to focus on your own ability. But when you finally let go and let God take care of it, you'll discover a peace which is beyond human understanding. Because the Prince of Peace has got this. I mean, if you want to modernize the gospel, and I try to do that sometimes in the way that I present things, but if you want to modernize the gospel, I don't see Jesus as somebody that's bagging and tagging, okay? I don't see that. But what I do see is a Jesus that can identify with where we're at. He's multicultural. He's beyond culture. He can speak your language. He can convey the message in a way that gives you peace if you'll just let him. The Prince of Peace has got this. Jesus has got this. And I think that, there's a song, he's got the whole world in his hands. I mean, do you really picture this big, huge, big Jesus in the universe, standing in the universe going, I got the world. Do you picture that? Do you? It's kind of out there. Invasion of the giant Jesus. Right. Yeah, I don't even the wink and the nod Jesus. No, I don't picture that either. What I picture is a person that can walk into a room and you can just lose touch of anything that bothers you. That for just a moment you can be in complete peace. I can picture God having the whole world in his hand, Jesus having the whole world in his hands, because he's got this. He's got everything. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter how broken you are, how lost you feel, how desperate your need. Jesus can walk in and say, you know what? We got this together. We can do this. I love you so much. And the way that we can reflect that peace is be that same thing to other people, that we can say, you know what? I got this. I got this. I love you. You're all right. Jesus is just all right with me. Jesus is just all right with you. Okay? Let's go pray. Lord Jesus, there's so much that I don't understand. There's so much that I miss. There's so much that I need. There's so much that troubles me. There's so much that makes me feel desperate sometimes. There's so much that makes me feel ugly. There's so much that makes me feel wanted. And there's so much that makes me feel ashamed of myself. I know that you are everything. I know that you've got this. You've got me. You got the whole world, because you know us each individually to the point where even the very hairs on our head are numbered. You know us that intently. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the great words. Sometimes I don't even have the prayers. But I know that when I reach out to you and say, God, I need you. I love you. Please help. You're there. You got it. You're there for me. You love me beyond anything or anyone could ever fit that need, fill that hole. You love me so much that you reach down inside of me and you say, you are significant. You are important. You are somebody that I died for. Put my yoke upon you. Because my yoke, my burden is light, because I love you, and I'll take every bit of this away. I'll take every bit, every problem that you have, and I'll love you. Oh, Jesus, love us all. Give us the ability to see your peace this holiday season when there's so many people needing to hear the gospel and needing to know their love, needing to know that we care because you care. Let us be mindful of who you are. Let us be mindful of how we share that this week. Let us be mindful of those people that are hurting during the holiday season because they don't know that others care, or because they have a need and no one's reaching them. Let us be your hands and feet. Let us be the people that show how much you care for us by the way that we care others. Let us be cognizant of the fact that there are people that have things a lot worse than we do. And let us be ever mindful of your presence and those that need to hear about the hope that we have. I thank you for this time, and I thank you for this blessing. And I just ask that you bless all of us, every one of us here. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Go in peace. God bless you.